The origins of my family living in America begin with my great-grandfather, Patrick Mulligan. He was born in Galway, Ireland in about 1890. His parents were Michael Mulligan and Anne Higgins, and Patrick was one of 11 children, 5 boys and 6 girls. The largest period of Irish migration to America happened during the Potato Famine, which occurred between 1845 and 1852. Between 1 and 1.5 million Irish left for North America during this time. This period predates the immigration of my great-grandfather, but the effect of the famine no doubt played a role in Patrick's decision to leave. Though the famine was over, Ireland remained impoverished for many years after. Having heard of the opportunities to be found in America from his brother Michael Jr., who had already left for the new country, Patrick traveled to America in 1912 at the age of 22. He joined Michael in New York City, where they both worked as seasonal construction workers. Life in the city was difficult for many Irish immigrants at this time. Patrick and his brother, like many other immigrants, lived in a small, cramped apartment. Patrick met Delia Agnes McHale, who was working as a maid in the city. They married in 1919 and moved to Bridgeport, Connecticut, where Patrick found work as a laborer for the city department. My grandfather Edward was born in 1920, and his sister Alice was born in 1923. Though Patrick began his life in America struggling to make ends meet, he was able to provide for his family and managed to send both children to college. Edward attended Sacred Heart University in Fairfield, Connecticut. Upon graduating, he was drafted into the United States Army, where he served as a lieutenant colonel in the South Pacific during World War II. Alice graduated from Danbury Teachers College and continued her education, receiving her master's from Yale University and the 6th-year teacher certificate from Fairfield University. Her career as an elementary school teacher for the Fairfield, Connecticut school system began in 1944 and continued until her retirement in 1979. She also served as a librarian in Newtown, Connecticut for a time. My grandmother Margaret was also a first-generation American. My great-great-grandparents on her side were Joseph J. Thaler and Anna Wadleger, both originally from Austria. A translation of Joseph and Anna's marriage certificate showed that the two were married in 1883 and owned a pub in Austria, living part of the year in Tarsdorf and part spent in Obstal. Similar to my great-grandfather's parents, Anna and Joseph had 11 children, and my great-grandfather Joseph Jr. was the oldest. He came to America in 1913 and was living in Michigan when he met my great-grandmother Gertrude. Her family was from Ireland and had traveled to Canada, eventually making their way to the U.S. They married in 1916 and had a son Francis in 1917, and my grandmother Margaret was born in 1923. My grandfather returned to Connecticut after the war and met my grandmother. They were married in 1946 and lived in Savannah, Georgia, while my grandfather finished his service to the Army. They returned back to Bridgeport, Connecticut, where they started their family. Their first child, Eileen, was born in 1948. My father, the second eldest, was born in 1955, and 3 younger sisters as well as a younger brother came later. My father met Lori McNamara in Bridgeport in the late 1970s. My mother is one of 10 children, so it can be extremely difficult to get them all in one picture together, let alone to trace their origins to America. They were married in 1984, and my brother Patrick was born in 1985. Next came my sister Alana in 1989, and my family then moved to the much smaller Connecticut town of Salisbury in 1990. I was born in 1991. How I ended up in El Paso is a much simpler story. My husband, Steve, was a close friend of my older brother in high school. We met when I was in middle school, and I thought he was a dork. My feelings changed when we met again in 2012, and Steve was a handsome Army captain visiting home on leave, and we began dating. Steve was stationed here at Fort Bliss in April of 2013. I moved down to start school at UTEP in January of 2014, and Steve and I were married in December of last year. By the way, he's still a dork. The face of the American is a constantly changing image. It is fascinating to think that just 100 years ago, slightly longer than a lifetime, my great-grandfather was seen as an outsider and faced hardships that seem so unimaginable today. His hard work and drive to provide a better life for his children proved that he was destined to become an American and achieve the American dream. Although in this class we have learned quite a bit about the struggles that today's immigrants to America face, learning my great-grandfather's story has made me hopeful that future generations will be as puzzled as I am by their immigrant ancestors' struggles.